yeah, 24 hours before the race. Gonna finish up now in terms of getting ready and winding down for the night. I will likely stretch and then get some sleep. But yeah, sub-19 minute 5k attempt tomorrow. Feeling very nervous. I'll be honest, feeling very, very nervous, but should be fine. I think the weather's meant to be like 25 degrees, which is not favourable, but it's only 5k race, so won't be hell for long, if that makes sense. But yeah. So just to quickly summarize, the race did go very well. We did manage to get a 19:19 PB. So not quite sub 19 minutes, but we're not far off, and I am very much happy with that. Really tough race though. So we are a week post Kickstarter, and I have been making progress like a madman. I've been sending emails for the past week to various suppliers, just telling them that we are definitely in business and will be shortly ready to make a couple of orders. A couple of things I need to do. So to give it a small-ish breakdown, I will need to place an order for ingredients. Once those ingredients are ordered, they will be delivered to my manufacturer, who will do so-called blending. They'll do blending, filling, and then they'll seal. Before they do any of that, they need to do a test run with a small batch. So I will send them ingredients, and I'll also send them a couple of the small samples of the sachets I have, so they can do a quick test on the foil, which is the actual material that is used on the sachets, to make sure that it is compatible with their systems and the machines, and it's not going to cause any issues. Saves me from spending a lot of money on materials, and then it basically stops me from blowing money, down the drain on possible issues with the foil and their systems and compatibility. They'll do the testing. If it works, if it's bueno, we will make a bigger order and get everything sent to them, and they'll do the process from there on. If not, obviously, we will make small iterations on whatever they recommend. But for now, I have reached out to a bunch of them, and it's just a matter of waiting to hear back on next steps, etc. Funny enough, the money from the Kickstarter hasn't actually landed yet. It typically takes 2 weeks for that to land. They take their 5% cut, which is, I guess, probably makes sense considering what they're actually giving people the ability to do. And then I'll be able to go from then onwards. Just doing some quick Richmond Park loops. The boy Dan. Far too hot for this. Got the Bugatti. And that's how you take that shot. So I might have just solved one of our biggest problems that I actually gave up on. I fully gave up on this before, but I have just been able to basically source stevia from an American company at a fraction of the cost of what it would have normally cost me in the UK, and they're able to do it at the order quantity that I wanted it for. So before, I struggled a lot with finding suppliers in the UK who were able to essentially give me, for example, I need a kilogram of stevia. Most suppliers normally produce between 20 to 25 kilograms as their minimum order quantity, which is to them the minimum viable amount for them to start making money. These guys, I basically emailed them, I explained the situation, explained to them that we're very early, new brand, and we're essentially early and willing to make and build a relationship with the company. basically were very open to that and were happy to work on the 1 kg order. This is like a huge win, like a ginormous win, which is amazing because I was already in the process of changing part of the formulation to be I don't want to say a lesser sweetener, but a different sweetener that's not as powerful and may have actually changed how the product tasted. And I don't want to celebrate too early, it's still quite early, but if this ends up being what it looks like it is, this is going to be huge. But shout out to if you're watching this, big shout out to you guys. James, I think it's James I'm speaking to, who looks, I think he might be just be the owner of the company. But shout out to you guys because you actually might just be my heroes. But yeah, I'm running through the numbers and looking at it as well, and it just works out way better if this is the case. But I'm gonna place the order once Kickstarter funds land next Thursday, and fingers crossed, it's good stuff. As far as I can tell, this looks like it's meant to be the real shit. So yeah, had a bit of it's not bad luck, but I was in a bit of a downer for the past couple of weeks because what was locked in wasn't locked in anymore, and yeah, part of the parcel. So just helping out some friends who have a sake cocktail with a huge delivery. They're just through there right now, packing up some orders, but this is how it's meant to be done. But yeah, isn't this mental? It's like, that's all just cocktails. That's the level I'm trying to be on.
3.
All done, I think. Oh, I'm done. These guys still have 2 pallets left, 3 pallets left.
Drinks.
Hey guys, we're back again. So I thought I would walk you through a quick step-by-step of the entirety of the supply chain for SOLELI, just from the start of the process when nothing is existing yet, all the way to the customer's house. I'm a visual learner, massive visual learner, so I just thought I'd draw this out for you so you could see how things are going to be taking place in the background and just get an idea of what actually happens at each stage. Sometimes I feel like I'm blabbering away on camera or I'm talking about something with people in public and I'll mention something and I always forget that, hang on, they probably don't understand exactly what I'm talking about. So if you're ever in doubt, this should clear up a lot of things for you. So one of the first orders you'll make is for your packaging. So we've got a sachet film supplier in China, as well as a box carton supplier in China. So box carton, that is just your box that holds the sachets. And then the sachet film supplier is essentially just the sachet, the stick sachet that you hold that houses the electrolyte powder in them. They're the first 2 orders we make just by nature of how far away they are. It may take a bit longer for them to actually get stuff together than it would take any of the other people in this sort of chain. So they're the first orders we make. Typically, we're looking at lead times, which is the wording that's used in the industry. That could be between 12 to 14 days to actually create what we're asking them to create, and then another maybe 5 to 10 days to actually get the product to our contract manufacturer. Which leads me on to our contract manufacturer. For those who don't know what a contract manufacturer is, essentially they are, if you'd like to imagine, they are the baker in the bakery. So they are the people who will take all the ingredients together and essentially put them together. They will blend the powder for me. They will fill the sachets up. They will seal the sachets, and then in some cases, especially my case, they'll also do part of the fulfillment and storage of the electrolyte sachets. So very important part of the puzzle here, probably the most important part of the puzzle. Next in line, and the second thing we'll be doing is ordering our ingredients. If you can see my handwriting, I'm not sure how clear my handwriting is on there. You can see various ingredients all cordoned off. We'll get into the reason why in a second. But we've got 7 ingredients: watermelon, magnesium, potassium, pink Himalayan salt, malic acid, citric acid, and stevia. That's what all makes up SOLELI. That's what makes it taste good. That's the good stuff right there. All of these come from different suppliers. So again, that's another level of the complexity that makes this puzzle right here a bit more fun to deal with. And that's fun with a bit of satire there. Pink Himalayan salt and potassium and magnesium and watermelon come from a company in the UK. So that's one place in the UK. Another company in the UK I'm dealing with will also handle the malic acid and citric acid. And then unfortunately, stevia is quite hard to find in the UK at competitive rates, especially for what I'm trying to achieve. We are very small, so we get hammered with minimum order quantities, which is essentially, for those who aren't in the know, the minimum viable amount that you need to buy from a company for it to be profitable, essentially. If you buy below that amount, to them, it's not making them any money. So a lot of companies will have a minimum order quantity. Hopefully I've explained that well. In the UK, a lot of companies have a minimum order quantity that would pretty much break my entire model. So it just didn't work. So we've managed to find one in the US. So we've got stevia coming in from the US, malic acid and citric acid, so acids coming from the UK, and then the rest of the ingredients coming from the UK as well. So that paints a picture of ingredients. Once they get ordered, all of these don't come to my house. They get sent to the contract manufacturer. Again, remember I was saying about they're the most important part of the puzzle. They, again, like I said, will put everything in this picture, this half of the picture together. So they'll blend, they'll fill, and then they'll pack. Once they've done their blending, filling, and packing, they, and I'm very lucky about this, they actually have a sister company who will do fulfillment and storage. Now, this is an important part of the supply chain because it's where often things can get a bit dicey in terms of complexities. I, at start, thought I could do this on my own from home. It turns out doing that myself would take an enormous amount of time and it just wouldn't be viable at all. It would almost, I wouldn't say it ruined my life, but it just wouldn't make sense to do it that way. So we're using their sister company for third-party logistics is what they call it. So your third-party logistics are people who will essentially, in my case especially, store the product as well as fulfill orders. So when an order comes through on Shopify, the storefront, what most people will see, it will then be communicated back to our fulfillment. They'll gather what the order number is, how many boxes are being ordered, the address, and then they will pair up with their shipping provider. Most cases will likely be Royal Mail to then get it to the customer. So quick and rough overview of the supply chain for SOLELI. Questions that some of you might be thinking at the moment as to, Sean, why haven't you just done all of this with one contract manufacturer in the UK? Because it would cost a boatload of money. When I first started speaking to suppliers and speaking to contract manufacturers in the UK, some of the quotes I was getting were ridiculous. So typically a company or person like me would have an idea. I would go to a contract manufacturer and say, I want to start an electrolyte company. A lot of these companies will already have their own white label supplements or products to hand. All they would do is essentially give you their one to try. You can make minor tweaks to it if that is what you want. They'll have a variety of flavors and you basically put your branding on their product. Completely opposite to what I wanted to do, but that is a typical way that a lot of companies, especially startups, would go to the market with a product they had out there. That could be upwards of £30,000. So that whole process with them doing all of that, their own testing, could be upwards of £30,000. Me doing it this way means it's a fraction of that. I really mean a fraction of that. And it means I can have better control of my margins, my cost of goods sold. These are all figures that are just very, very important for me to be able to, first of all, get a proof of concept with our run number one. And also then, if I wanted to, it would be very clear and easy for me to say, right, this is how much we've made in run number one. Run number two is going to make a lot more sense now because I've done all the work in the background to make sure that our margins are going to make sense scaling to a second run, as well as my cost of goods sold. But yeah, so just to answer that question in a very roundabout way, the reason why I've not gone with one person who does everything for me is it would just cost far too much money and it wouldn't be how I wanted to do it. This is how I wanted to start a company. I believe in doing all, if not as much as possible on your own. And the way I see it is I will essentially, by virtue of compounding, learn enough that I will have a very good understanding of everything that happens in my business at any time. Again, all I'm trying to do is mitigate risk, and that risk being failing. I'm sure failing will come at some point, but I'd rather reduce that risk, mitigate my risk. But yeah, very roundabout way to explain it. I am just rambling over here, to be honest, at a camera. But that is it. SOLELI's supply chain.